She was getting ready to leave, and you know how some people want to leave their legacy, and that's one thing that she wanted to do. Well, one of the things that she wanted to do before she actually left, and that was to build that new sterile processing department from the ground up. And she says, I think it's time. I think you can handle it.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal to help you fight dirty. Every instrument, every time. Whether you're tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now, turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
This week on Beyond Clean, we speak with Juanita Burrell, Sterile Processing Manager at Illinois Masonic Medical Center. And this whole season is all about sterile storage, Hank, and we've got a frontline story for the listeners today.
Yeah, and this story is going to be an interesting one because it's about that transition process through season 14. We're going to talk about regulatory and technology and policies and all that jazz. But this is really the one that's going to walk us through the problem, the conversation, and then the solution in a way that I think is really going to lay out those concrete steps, because it's great to know what's wrong. It's great to know what's right. But that journey in between is the one that matters. And so I'm super excited to talk to Juanita about what that looked like in her department.
All right. Well, turn it up. This is going to be a great episode. We're going to be right back with Juanita Burrell. I'm Justin Poulin.
And I'm Hank Balch.
From the 17 studios, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
Joining us now is Juanita Burrell, Sterile Processing Manager at Illinois Masonic Medical Center. And Juanita, really excited to have you on the show. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I always enjoy is talking to people who are out there living this job every single day. We get all different types of people on the show. We talk to innovators and we talk to frontline technicians. We talk to managers, but this is usually my favorite type of conversation because you're going to anchor it on what the audience goes through every single day. So welcome to Beyond Clean.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So I'm going to let you go ahead and just give us a little bit of a background. How did you find sterile processing? Why does it matter to you so much?
Oh my God. Actually, I've been in sterile processing really all my life, to be honest to God truth. I started out in a little small hospital called Mary Thompson Hospital. I started out as a secretary. And basically, that was kind of boring because back in the day, when they had those old typewriters and you used to have to type up, I used to have to type up par level sheets. And, you know, if you make a mistake, you got this white stuff that you just erase out. I was horrible. And so I had a little extra work I had to do on one weekend. And so I saw the technician doing trays in decontam, and it was just like so many tools. And so I was like, what are you guys doing? And like, oh, we're setting up trays. And actually my boss said, she is not allowed to do that. She's only supposed to be a tech. I don't want to ever catch her back there in that decontam area, over in the assembly area. So this particular time I didn't finish my work. So I had to come in on a weekend to finish all that typing, which I hated. So I looked in the decontam, what are you guys doing back there? And they're like, you want me to show you how to do it? I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, oh, how can you understand and separate all these various type of instruments? So this young lady, she actually walked me through everything. And so when a position became available, I applied for it. And so, at that particular time when you're young, you want to learn all you can, because this is something so different and so out of the norm. And it was something that's going to be working on a patient that's up in OR. So all my energy level is like, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to learn how to do this. So anyway, in Mary Thompson was a very small hospital in Chicago. I think it was on the west side of Chicago. So that place closed. Okay. So then my boss actually told me about a position, a sterile processing tech position at Palos Hospital. So prior to going to Palos Hospital, I wanted to get certified in it. I wanted to know all I could possibly know during that particular time. And so I did. It was home study at that particular time. So I studied at home on my own and went forward and I took the test. So during that time, they would get you had to select someone that was permanent in society, maybe another manager, a priest, or someone that's going to be honest and give you that test and you won't cheat. So I selected, I think she was a teacher. And she really wouldn't let me cheat either, boy. Wow.
So she did her job, okay.
Yeah. The test was kind of hard. And I was looking around, but, I'm like, no, just keep doing what you're doing. So I did pass the test. And I did finally land that job at Palos Hospital as a technician. And so at that particular time, I was the only person certified in that department. And
wow.
Yeah, so my boss, she wanted all her folks to be certified. And I must say, at that particular place, they had the top of the line equipment. They really did. They had everything they was moving forward. And so she wanted to have all her folks certified. So she asked me if I could help her out. And I was like, yeah. So, since I started out in decontam, which one that's kind of struck my interest, I took that portion of the class. And I think she had the sterilization portion. And we had infection control people to come in and do a portion. And I think everybody there was kind of excited about it because everybody had a role, even risk. Everyone had a role as far as teaching that particular class. So a lot of folks went forward and they did get certified. And tell you the truth, one of the person that got certified, she ended up being on the board of CBSPD. She ended up with a permanent position there. I don't know whether she still holds it or not, but I know she held it for a very long time.
You were a real upstart department. I mean, seriously, right?
Yeah.
For everybody to become certified in that scenario, you really fostered a great deal of passion, and certainly they carried that forward just as you did. So that's a great story. Yes,
I was bouncing off with them. I think we was bouncing off on each other energy. And so after that, I went to another hospital, and this was as a supervisor role. At that particular time, it was called St. Francis Hospital in Blue Island. And I'm going to be honest, that manager we didn't click very well. I mean, we really didn't.
You can't win them all.
No. There was something I had to learn there. So what I learned there is the heart equipment that they used to do heart procedure, because they was major and they was one of the major hospitals in doing heart procedure. So I learned all the heart instruments and the equipment that they use to perform the heart surgery, and so forth and so on. So every place that I went, it was a reason for me going there, but I didn't know that. Okay, it's like being in the valley and then trying to rise up, and then you go slide back down. And you get all stressed because once you get to a place, you kind of want to stay. Because I'm committed, It's like once I latch onto something, I'm there for the long haul until I see it finish. Okay.
Well, speaking of reasons for being there, that's the transition or the segue, because the story that you've already told me, and I got kind of a sneak peek of, what you're doing today and the impact that you've had on your department. But that reason, like you just said, you got wrapped in through decontam. In that other facility, you got wrapped into teaching. And now in your current facility, you have been the primary driver and the major driver of a tremendous transition in sterile storage. And obviously that's what this whole season is about, season 14. Can you talk about what that kind of reason has been for you in your facility today? Like, what did that department look like in terms of sterile storage when you arrived?
Oh my God. Oh my God. You know
that bad.
Oh my God. When you go to your first interview, I kind of like wonder why I didn't have a tour of the department, but that was okay, because I wanted to be there. So once I first got hired and I actually went into that department, because prior to that, I used to work at University of Chicago, and that was huge. And that was a lesson learned there anyway. So, and that was the top of the line. They had the state of the art equipment, storage, everything. It was this huge place. So when I went there, I kind of felt it would be similar to this other place that I work at, which also was on the west side, very small hospital. It was a lesson learned, honestly. I walked away with a lot of knowledge and a lot of skill set. So prior to going to University of Chicago, I had worked at St. Anthony Hospital. And again, it was a lot of responsibility. And so, I felt, tough and knew my stuff. And then when I went to University of Chicago, I got intimidated. I was like, oh my God, this place is huge. So when I end up where I'm at right now, I figured I knew it was smaller than University of Chicago. So I was like, okay, it's probably similar to, St. Anthony Hospital. So I should be okay. And I just wanted to be there. But when I walked into the department and I was looking around, I was like, oh my God, wow. It was dated. It was definitely dated, but functional.
Which describes 90% of sterile processing departments around the country. They're all working, right? We're finding a way to magically get these trays. Yeah. That's the sterile processing superpower is you throw us in any scenario, any number of staff, like broken equipment, whatever, you throw us down there, we're going to find a way to get it done. Now, is that sustainable? Too. Yeah, no, it is. It's a miracle. We're miracle workers, but it's not sustainable.
Right, it's not sustainable. You got to move with time. You have to. But you'd be surprised how you're making it happen, how you'll be able to connect all those dots, and those patients are getting what they need, and they're getting it in a safe way and timely. But it was very stressful.
So you walk into this department, you get the wow factor, but not like the good wow. This is like a, ooh, ow, wow. Right. And you get convinced that, okay, in this sterile storage area, this is not going to work. But where do you go from there, right? Because a lot of folks listening to this podcast, they have the same experience. They're looking at their sterile storage saying, this is not sustainable. This is not going to work. But they may not know how to get the investment. Yeah, get that investment that's required. So kind of walk us through, what did you do from the moment that you identified this is not going to work to that next step?
So it's almost like you're walking into something and you're like, and you look and you're like, okay, I got to roll up my sleeve. I got to figure out how to make this work because our case volume is growing and we're getting more trays in. And we got to be able to find these trays because it's so congested and so compacted. It's like, okay, we got to come up with some kind of action plan and some kind of logo where people will know how to, when they get ready to pick their cases, they'll know where to go and find these trays. And you'll be amazed how staff, if you put little things in place, even though it's congested, they will find it. They will find it. But they're working in so much constraint. They're working where it's really not good, but they're making it happen. And they're doing it. It's like everybody up under each other. And that also can cause a lot of friction, a lot of staff kind of bumping each other by the elbow and, just cause a lot of morale problems. Okay, because everything is so compacted.
So we got the physical constraints, as you said, which is a workflow issue. And then you got these morale issues. Did you kind of package those up then and take that to your boss? Or how did those challenges get escalated to the point to where they're like, okay, now you can write a check?
Right. So basically, it was a kind of in the future plan anyway. Okay. But, sterile process is always the last on the department that because we're not a revenue producing department.
That's why I call it the future plan.
It's a future plan. It's a future plan. That's right. And maybe we'll get to it and maybe we won't get to it. Right. Plan. And so it's like you said, how did I get to my boss and says, hey, we got to do something. But, we have a reporting event. And so sometimes when there's not enough lighting in the place, different things start happening. You have to report that stuff out. And so when you report it out, you might say, oh, the light fixtures are not working. Or a tray went up. They didn't realize there was a faucet that was bent or broken. And it's because of, it's not enough lighting for them to see. They couldn't find the tray because stuff is coming everywhere. In decontam, it was so congested in there. You weren't pushing the trays out timely. All these things had to be reported. And so they realized that, wait a minute, we need to do something about sterile processing. We need to move on with our goal, our future plan that we were planning on doing from the beginning. I think this is the time we can make it happen. And so they had one VP there, and she says, okay, I heard about you. I think this is time for us to move forward. And so she was ready to leave, and you know how some people want to leave their legacy, and that's one thing that she wanted to do. Well, one of the things that she wanted to do before she actually left. And that was to build that new sterile processing department from the ground up. And she says, I think it's time. I think you can handle it. And we thank you for coming. She was very, very nice. She really was. And sure enough, we got started on it.
That story about reporting is a huge takeaway for folks listening, because it's easy, just like we were talking about before, it's easy to get in that mode of, let's just do it, get it done, get the surgeries, like make sure that everyone's taken care of. But to take that time to document all these things that are not working and to get that on paper and start that list and build that case to take to that VP and to convince him, that's massive. So I really want to key in on that again for the audience. Like, if you're not reporting issues today that are related to your sterile storage constraints and challenges, like, start that list tomorrow when you get in your facility and tell your whole staff.
The key. Absolutely.
Right.
The key. Right.
Right. So she wants to leave this legacy and support these positive changes. But now the step goes into, okay, you've got the budget and you've got all these vendors who want to come to the table and say, pick me, choose me. What did that process look like in evaluating vendors and options? And what did you appreciate about how those vendors engaged you? Like, what really caught your eye through that process?
So there was listening. They really was listening to us. And because they realized we were really the experts. We knew what was needed to make this department work and we make this department function properly and smoothly. After we selected the architecture people to come in and do the work, I was really at the table when they were selecting who was actually going to do the work. And I was actually informed I was only going to come in as it relates to certain parts of sterile processing. That was my takeaway. But I realized I was there from the initial beginning all the way through. So when they really, as a collective group, decided what architecture group they was going to go with, that group came in and they started out previewing each area to see what we was actually doing. And we did inform the staff that this was going to happen. But the staff was kind of like, they was asking them questions that they felt like they should already know. And they was kind of irritated with them. Well, don't you know this already? Why are you asking me? Why am I doing this and that? So they was really kind of irritated. And I came back to them, you know what, you guys asking them questions and they feels like you guys is really the expert in building this. And you guys are asking us questions about things that you should really already know. So then we had like this big meeting with the staff. the company asked the different people that they had selected to come to the meeting, what did they want to see in this new place? What would they like to have? So a couple of things came out was they wanted their own workstation because the workstation we had was like, it was just all on top of each other. And they wanted their own individual bathroom. They wanted a shower. They wanted and actually they got a shower for real. They wanted bigger.
They don't ask for much around there, do they?
I'll tell you what, we had a shower at one place I worked and it was awesome. I'd go for a run at lunchtime and it was a saving grace for that.
Yeah, they wanted that shower and they actually got it. And they wanted a bigger decontam. They wanted the elevator to come directly down in decontam to go straight up to OR.
I love that.
Yeah.
Dedicated.
They got all the bells and whistles. Everything that they really wanted, they actually got it. So it came around to the shelving part. They wanted more space for storage. First, they wanted to go the cheaper route with the same traditional wire shelving. Nobody.
Why?
Well, it was more cost effective to keep the project going.
So when you say it wasn't the staff that wanted to do it. No. It was whoever was holding the budget for the renovation project.
Dollars. Yeah, releasing those dollars. Yeah, absolutely. And so it was a couple of the vendors came to the table with their shelving. And one of the wire shelving, the other one was, that rolling type of shelving where you slide back. And so because a lot of girls work in the department, so nobody really wanted that because you have to wait until another person get out of the way to slide it back or you're going to be stuck up in it. Especially if you have a very, very busy department.
That just makes sure that you pay attention. That's all, They keep you on your toes.
Right. So then we saw this other up-to-date type of shelving where it would take away holes and trays. It had its own individual compartment, and you didn't have to stack. You didn't have to worry about dust collecting down on the trays. It was designed to be so many inches from the floor, so many inches from the ceiling, because actually we had a lower ceiling. We couldn't put anything on the top. Actually, I can go like this and touch the ceiling.
Was space at a premium? Because already, like you just said, low ceilings, but you're going through this, redesign / renovation for the department, right? So were you already pressed for storage space, or did you have enough space, or you were gaining extra square footage as part of this project? Or
I did not have enough storage space. Actually, the little small room, it was almost like an office space, and definitely you could not store enough trays in that particular area. So you had to roll out into like the case cart area where the sterilization stuff is kind of kept at. You had to put some trays, some shelving out there. And I'm like 5'8", and if I raise my hands up, I'm almost touching the ceiling. So, yeah.
So this is like a really big change then. You knew you needed more space. So going with the traditional racks wasn't going to solve that problem. And at the same time, you're already pressed for space, and then you got to do all of this stuff, and everything's going to get moved around, and you're definitely, it's going to be cramping your style as you go through the transition, right? From the way it was to what it's going to be. And the reason you're doing this is because you need more space, but I know how this goes. It takes up a lot of your space in the meantime. So how did you get prepared for everything? Like, you're about to transition to this new one. And that's really, I want to hear what it looks like now that you've gotten through the process. But what were some of the considerations, and how did you make sure that, because you mentioned this was kind of, there were two pieces, and then one part of it was a culture piece. So as part of that attack on the culture piece was sort of like, hey, shouldn't you already know the answers to these things before we do this project, right? So they're kind of like, they're going through pain. The staff is about to go through pain, and then we're going to double down on it. We're going to make it even harder to do their job. And we're selling them on, but it's going to be so awesome when we get there. And yeah, when they finally get there, everybody's happy. But it does have an impact on everybody's stress level which may or may not have already been elevated. So what were some things that you did to really prepare not only the department, but everybody who was working in the department to go through that transition so they could come out the butterfly on the other side?
So we had them to make a list, like a wish list, okay, of what you want in this place. And once they did that, we gave them an opportunity to walk through the space before it actually got built, before anything actually was placed in there. We just kept them motivated. Okay, this is in phase 1. This is what it's looked like. This is phase 2. Come on over and see what you can see. If there's any changes you think that we need to do, they will come and they will make some suggestions. And the virtual 3D was awesome for them because they got a chance to see, like nothing is really there, but they got a chance to see through that virtual the possibilities of what is going to be there. And that really made them so excited. So we was cool with the decontam because it had everything in place just the way it was going to be. And they were excited about that. They were excited about the assembly area. And when it got towards the shelving, that's when they had placed those wire racks, and and we already said what we wanted to go with, and they placed a wire rack. So they're looking through that virtual 3D, and it was like, "What is this? This is not what we asked for. We don't like this." And so they're like, "Okay, well, we don't know what happened. We'll flip it." So when they flipped it and showed exactly what we wanted, oh wow, they were so excited.
And did the end result look like what you were visualizing? Because that is really critically important. Sometimes you talk about things, but people don't really understand what it's going to be. And so that visualization piece, so critical. Does everybody feel like once they made those corrections to that 3D design, that now that the department is done and everything's ready, does it look like how they expected it after they had a more concrete visualization?
Absolutely it did. But one thing about when you're walking into a new place and it's empty, it looks huge. But when you start filling everything in, it kind of take a little bit away from all that tiny space, But they were still very, very excited about, oh my God, their new home. And today they are still excited about it. And they're still showing it out. And it's a new baby right now. It's like 2 years old.
Okay. I've got a 2-year-old, and I'm still very proud of my 2-year-old. So I get that. So
right.
You have told a tremendous story, Juanita, like both personally and professionally, right? Like that you have been placed in positions where just tremendous opportunities have opened up before you to be that leader, like regardless of what your title was, but to be that leader, to push yourself, to push your team. And even in this story, to take your team into a completely new department in a sterile storage area in particular that you love. So as we wrap up this interview, I do want to ask a question because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago and we chatted. I loved your answer and I loved your reason for this, but you just brought it up again. Like this is a baby that you're proud of, and you have become an advocate for good sterile storage because you've lived through the bad sterile storage and you have seen the good and the great sterile storage, but you've really become an advocate and to have continued to share that. So talk a little bit about why you have kind of zeroed in on this and become such a fan and the impact that it has had in your relationships around the industry.
So having a storage system that workable, it not only help you deliver a package to your customers, but it also build morale. When people are working in an environment where it's easy to maneuver around, comfortable, enough space, people tends to work more smoothly together, where there's a lot of light, it's not all dim, and because they're coming to work and you don't know what environment they're coming from, okay? And you don't even know what they're bringing into the place, okay? But when you get all these people together and you got an environment where there's a lot of light, a lot of space, things are organized, things look good, things look clean, personality changes. Okay. And it fits into that atmosphere. And that helps the manager a whole lot. So that means there's less stress. Not that the stress won't be there, but it's not as huge as it was when you were in a space that's confined. You know, everybody's on each other's nerves and so close together. But now you got space. You spread it out. You know, you don't have to worry about, you put this on this. Don't put this on my side. You know, this is my space. You don't have to worry about that because you got your own section. You got everything just for you.
You know, sometimes having something, the shiny new toy, the brand new baby, whatever we want to compare it to, you know, just has an impact on morale. But I like how you just said, like, actually having additional physical space had an impact on morale that was long lasting. Because that fresh, shiny new, it always wears off. Absolutely, at some point. But not crawling all over each other, you know, and feeling like you can move around a little bit. And, you know, even just walking from one place to another instead of like having to stop and wait for somebody to go by, or you're carrying a heavy tray, like all of that, just the flow of the department, having that additional space is so critical.
I totally agree. Totally agree with that.
Juanita, this has been a really, really solid interview. I want to see pictures at some point. I'll tell you that much. I'm like, you've got me really like thinking, and I want to play with the 3D animator too, by the way, because that to me is also an engagement tool for the people in the department. They feel like they're part of it. Like when you talk about real change management, letting people feel like they had some influence over it, then they really feel like it's their department when you get to the other end of, and all of those things are really critical to that morale, that culture. I mean, all the words that we've used to describe throughout this interview, but I do want to play with it because I think the 3D animator would be fun, but I think it's a real critical tool moving forward.
Yes, but none of this could not have been done without support of my director, who's really supporting me. And she knew I knew what I knew. And she really just let me bring out that skill set and do what needs to get done. And if any time that she saw that they had presented that something that I didn't particularly like, she asked me, what's wrong? And I'm like, we don't want that. And then so she'll go and says, well, why are you presenting this? This is not what we agreed upon. So she was very, very supportive in allowing me to utilize my skill set in the field that I know, because she knew I knew that.
What we just talked about, engaging the team and letting them feel part of it, she obviously gets that too. And that's great leadership, the way that those pieces all fall all the way, you know, throughout the organization. It's so important because I can hear your passion for that project, and she let you do the part that allowed you to invest the time and the energy, and have the energy during a time when your job only gets harder for a period, you know, to continue to lead and be excited so that everybody else in the department can stay excited. And that gets you through the hard times and to the point where you have, you know, this great department. Juanita, awesome job. Congratulations. I know it's been 2 years, but these moments when we get to make it feel like it just happened yesterday are critical to just continuing to drive that forward. So I hope you continue to enjoy the department.
Yes. Thank you.
That was Juanita Burrell, Sterile Processing Manager at Illinois Masonic Medical Center. And Hank, you know, I know this whole season is about, you know, sterile storage and storage solutions. And this episode, obviously very much really along those themes. But I heard a lot from Juanita that was really much more higher level sort of takeaways and almost inspirational from the standpoint of, she talked about how she'd been in some difficult, you know, situations throughout her career, just as she was telling us her background, and how she found ways to see purpose in that and then to gain experience and rise above it. She talked about the importance of being a self-learner and how she obtained the certification when nobody else in the department had a certification. She talked about solid leadership and how to engage the department through a change management process that gives everybody that extra excitement that helps get through tough times. And then she talked about how she herself had been effectively mentored and trusted, and what that looks like to be on the receiving end of somebody who is allowing you to really become or be, everything that you can possibly be in a situation, and really either lead a team, or you don't have to be in a leadership position for that. You can just be part of the team, but really feeling like you have the opportunity to give everything that you have and that you're being empowered to do that. So yes, lots of cool stories in this discussion about how they went through the process. But for me, it was a lot of that high level stuff that I think every single one of us can relate to, even if we're not going through a renovation, or a redesign of our department on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, the one theme I would add, or maybe nuance to what you said, is the idea that these decisions are personal. Like, there's people that are deciding. It's either a leader or an architect or the department. That theme came up, and you brought that up, of engaging that frontline perspective to give that kind of feedback. But it's all people. And that's so easy to miss when we're talking about processes and when you're talking about products and solutions, to impact this, and there's sales pitches involved and there's budgets involved and everything else. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a person that makes this decision, and there's going to be people that live with the decision once it's made. And I think that theme just really came out strongly in this conversation with Juanita. It's a good reminder. It's a good reminder for me. It's a good reminder for all of us that all of this, at the end of the day, all the technical, all the regulatory, everything comes down to, are we creating a place and an atmosphere in our departments that our people can thrive? I hope this is just an encouragement for folks.
Yeah, it's literally the first P in our value statement about people, processes, and products that are driving the industry forward. And there's a reason people is listed first. Great point, Hank. That's going to do it for this episode. But as a reminder, you can support Beyond Clean by subscribing on Apple, Amazon, or Google Podcasts. You can also find us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, or simply search for Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast application. Just a reminder that you can get bonus content if you download our smartphone application for iPhone and Android. We certainly appreciate a rating and a review because your feedback is important to the show. If you have any topics, and this is a sincere outreach to all of you out there, if you have topics that you'd like to hear Hank and I discuss on the podcast, just go ahead and send an email to info@beyondclean.net. And on behalf of Hank and myself, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond Clean.